let's assume we have a business idea. Do we have to do a full-scale business plan on every single idea we have? No. What we normally do is we do a preliminary business analysis, and that effectively will determine whether or not we should do a business plan or not. So we are really taking the inverted funnel approach where we say, okay, look, here's all these ideas we have. We have to narrow it down to ideas that we think can work. So this that we talked about last week was something we call the feasibility analysis, which is really just a sizing up a business idea preliminarily to kind of get a sense, is this something that we could take a look at? And when we talk about business idea could be within a firm. You know, for example, if you're government of Newfoundland and you're thinking Muskrat Falls, should we build it or not? That's the type of thing that you'd build a business plan on, you know, and it's questionable whether they did a good job with that. But at least the fact of the matter is you do that assessment before you get into spending piles of money or piles of energy to really get a good sense of whether or not the system or the idea is going to work. So if you've done the feasibility analysis and you think, yeah, this potentially could make money, then you go on to this next stage. And this next stage is part 2 and 3 of what we're talking about, which is really a full-blown business plan. And for the purposes of this particular unit, this particular module, what we're looking at here, the thing is that what you need to do in this particular module is exactly this part right here. What I'm asking you to do is to consider a business idea and work through some of the things we're going to talk about tonight and next week. And that will be the major core part of the requirements for this module. There's no quiz in this module. It's just this requirement of the business plan. So what I wanted to do tonight was to look at part 2, which is really part 1 of a business plan. Next week, we're going to look at part 2 of the business plan, which is part 3 of the module. Those two things will give you the basis to be able to develop a basic business plan for a business idea. Next week, we should be able to clue up all of the material that we're covering for this module and for the whole program. You have until, I think, the 23rd. I think that's the date. It's a Friday anyway. 23rd to get it all clued up, and that way we will be completed with the program. So we're at week 28 of our 30 weeks here tonight. So without further ado, then, let's take a look at this part 2, which is really, we've gone through in part 1, we've gone through feasibility analysis, we're looking at a business idea, and we're thinking to ourselves, having gone through the feasibility analysis, that yeah, this could potentially work. This could potentially work, and it could be an idea. Now that you've done that, you say, okay, what do I do next? Well, the next thing you need to do with a basic business idea and using the information that you used in order to formulate that feasibility analysis, the next thing you need to do is to start building a business plan. Now, there is no such thing as a pat way to do a business plan, okay? There's no template that works for every single business plan. Depending on the product you're making, like if you're selling products, if you're selling machine parts, that's one type of business. If you're selling a service, for example, electrical services, that's another type of business plan. So all business plans are a little bit different. What I'm focusing on are the common elements that you will find in all business plans. So depending on what you're selling, certain aspects, or what you're doing in your business, certain aspects of the business plan will get more emphasis than others. So tonight, we're looking at this introduction. And what exactly is the introduction? Well, the introduction is, I'm going to call it a pitch. For lack of a better term, it's a pitch. You imagine now that I am stood up in front of you guys and I throw down a bunch of booklets in front of you, okay? We'll call them booklets. So here I got a booklet. We throw it down in front of you and you're going to say, you're asking me to read that. I don't know if I got time. You know, I got work to do. I'm working, or I don't have enough time for this. So what you need to be able to do is to get over that first hurdle in a business plan. The very first hurdle is being able to capture someone's attention. It's the pretty part of a business plan. What we're talking about here tonight is that pretty part. You got to get it from someone's desk to someone's eyes. How do you do that? Well, you do that by creating something that's interesting, and it has all the elements of what make it interesting. It has to be easily read, it doesn't take a lot of time to read it. It gives a gist of the idea of what you're trying to sell or what you're doing. So someone within 15 minutes, okay, 15 minutes, should be able to go through this, and at the end, they should be able to tell you exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. And they should also, in 15 minutes, have an idea in their head that, yeah, this could potentially work. And that's a tall order. That's a tall order because you only have a very limited amount of time. So what do you need to do in terms of the guts of this in order to make it interesting enough and informative enough so that someone could tell you back what you're interested in doing and potentially support you in doing it? So as we talked about last week, the business plan really defines your business, identifies your goals, and serves as the firm's resume. So that 15 minutes, that's effectively what that business plan is going to do. It's the resume for what you want to do. From your perspective as the business owner or the business creator, the business plan is going to have another use, and that is it helps you think about the business before you actually do it. So you get your head straight on exactly what you want to do and think about some of the humps and bumps that you can avoid as you go along. You've given it lots and lots of thought. So it helps allocate resources properly, handle unforeseen complications, and hopefully make the right decisions. If you think about that business plan, then based on that, it has an internal reason. You're benefiting from doing the business plan, but it has an external reason too, is that someone else is going to look at it and agree with you that, yeah, this is a good idea. And they are so enthused with it that they're willing to support you with dollars and cents or energy. The other critical thing in a business plan is, and thanks to the world of computers that we all live in now, it is a dynamic document. In other words, that just means it's never really finished. You're going to do it, and someone's going to read it, and someone's going to make a suggestion, or someone's going to say, have you thought about, or someone's going to say, maybe you should add this, or you're going to think, oh yeah, I never thought of that, I should mention that. So it is an evolving document. And once you start your business or you move into your business, you're always updating it. So it's one of those things that is never really finished, but it evolves as you've got it started. Now, years ago, when people used to do things on paper, and even today, if you do it on paper, what a lot of people do is they take a business plan and they put it in a 3-ring binder so that you can take pages out and add pages in, okay? On a computer, that's effectively what you're doing, taking things out and adding things in. If we had to ask ourselves, okay, what do I need to put in the business plan? Like, where do I start this? What guts need to go in it that someone's going to want to know? Well, the very first thing that you really need to consider is how to introduce the business plan. Remember, that person that you just threw that, if I threw that document in front of you, you're going to say, I don't really want to read this and I don't want to waste too much time at it. You, or I, in the case of this, I have to make it interesting enough for you to continue reading it and to believe in it. So it's very important in this beginning, or what we call introduction stage, is to capture the attention of the reader. How do we do that? Well, some basic information needs to be given in every business plan right up front. What the heck is this business? The name. Where the heck is this business happening? The place. What the heck is this business planning on doing or selling? The purpose of the business. Those are essential elements that need to be tackled in the business plan right up front. Someone's going to read that first paragraph, no more than 3 paragraphs, and they're going to be able to tell you what the business is, where the business is going to operate, and what the business plans to do right up front. Now, as you get a little deeper, you're going to say, well, okay, my business might be brand new. It may not have a history. However, my business could be on the go for years. I'm just planning on expanding or doing something different with it. So the second element that you need to put in is a little bit of a business history. Your business may not have a history, but if it does, some sort of a history of what the business, or this really gives a rationale for why this business is a good idea, ultimately. And the purpose of the business is there too. And you know, this idea of a sense of purpose, it's one thing for you to say, well, I want to start a business, but why? Why are you doing it? What's the reason? You know, ultimately with every business, the idea is that it's going to make more money than it costs to run. In other words, it's profitable. Anyone who's planning on investing want their money back at some point in time. And if your business cannot prove that it is profitable, meaning that it has a purpose that involves making money, no matter what it does, it has to make money, that has to be demonstrated. Now, part and parcel of that was, how are you going to do that? What is the strategy? What is the plan to get this business to make money? And we talked about this idea of strategy. We also talked about this idea of vision. Vision is what you imagine the business is going to be in 5 years' time, 1 year's time, 3 years' time. It doesn't matter. It's your vision of where you want to go with this. The strategy has to match the vision. If you say, okay, we want to grow our business by to 1,500 employees in the next 3 years, well, the strategy has to be, how are you going to get 1,500 employees? You know, that sort of thing. So the purpose of the business has to be there in that front section. The business environment is also important because no business operates in isolation. If you're going to start a business, what in the heck are you doing this for? You know, if you're starting a machining company, for example, in Clarenville, you ask yourself, well, why in the heck am I starting a machining business in Clarenville? Well, you have to demonstrate that there's a market for it, right? So what is the environment it operates in? What's going on out there? This has nothing to do with the business. This has to do with the outside world that the business is operating in. We're talking about the demographic factors. Who are your potential customers? Where are they located? How old are they? How much money do they have? What are their needs? These sorts of things are what are considered the environment. What's going on out there in the outside world that makes this business a potential moneymaker? And if that part is weak, someone's going to look at it and say, well, this business is nice, but how does it relate to the world, right? The business interacts with the world. So how does your idea connect with the world that is out there? And obviously, in terms of that connection, the business has to have an idea of what it's selling in order to meet the needs of that world. So if you got a bunch of seniors out there, as you do in our world, for example, Newfoundland, Labrador, or most of Canada now, if you got a population of seniors and you have a business that's selling to seniors, you can see this link being made. So this is what you need to be able to try to do in your business plan, is to make a link between what you're doing and what the market wants. So this is really what you're talking about. These things, you know, the basic business idea is what is covered in this important introduction section. As I say, it's so important because that's the candy that's going to bring someone to read the entire document. This part is super, super, super critical. You could have the best idea in the world, but unless you entice someone to look into it deeper, this section allows an opportunity for you to get someone to look into it deeper. Okay, so that's all good in theory. Now it's the basic theory about what is the guts, what is the actual things that you had to have there that covers off those issues that we just talked about. Well, the very first thing that you always should have on a business plan is a cover page. Now, again, I'll go back to, I just threw these documents down in front of you and you're judging the book by its cover. Okay, you are judging the book by its cover. You're going to look at this bunch of things I threw in front of you, and you're going to probably make a decision to look at one or two of those based on what you're looking at. You're looking at the cover. So the cover page has to be really nice. It physically has to look nice, and it physically has to contain important bits of information that someone would say, I should crack the cover and read the guts of this. Behind the cover page, if you can get them to open the cover, you got that far, then they're going to want to be able to see something called a table of contents. Now, table of contents is what is an outline of all of the things that are in this document behind the cover. So some people might be interested in finance more than anything else. Some people might be interested in history of the business. Some people might, but regardless, when you put a table of contents in, it clearly says this section that you're interested in can be found on page 34 or 24 or whatever. So the table of contents gives a good thumbnail summary of what's in this document, how it's laid out, what it's talking about. Speaking of thumbnails, okay, so they've cracked the cover on it. They're looking at the table of contents. And the first thing they see in the table of contents is this concept of an executive summary. So they're going to open the door, flip to the next page, and the next page got something written on it that says executive summary. Now, an executive summary, as the name suggests, is a summary for people who just want a broad idea of what this whole document is about that they can read in 1 minute. It's the elevator pitch. I don't know if you've heard the term elevator pitch. If you walk into an elevator and you got to tell someone something before it dings that you're at the next floor, you got 40 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it is. That executive summary is designed that you can tell someone effectively what's in this in 30 minutes to a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, sorry. That's 1 to 2 pages. 1 to 2 pages. So the executive summary is a 1 to 2 page, I'll call it a Reader's Digest. Reader's Digest shortened down books into 2 or 3 pages. It's a Reader's Digest version of your business plan. You never write an executive summary up front. After you've written your business plan, then you kind of synthesize it down, and then you write the executive summary. Even though it's the first major thing that's in any plan or in any book or in any document, it's always the last thing written, and it's put in at the once you've got all the work done. And it just gives a very quick thumbnail of what you're going to be doing. Now, someone's read the executive summary. Again, it's all designed like candy, okay? The cover was designed to get their attention. They opened the cover. They looked at the basic table of contents so they know what's in it. Maybe they're interested in one thing or another. Then they switched and they said, okay, we read the executive summary. We have a good idea what this is about. Now, we move into the actual guts of the document. The actual guts of the document starts with a more fulsome, the executive summary was a short version, a more fulsome version of what exactly was in the executive summary. So the executive summary is going to start out by saying, well, here's the business idea, here's the history of the business, here's what we plan to do. Well, those are the things that are found in the rest of the introduction. So for example, the company, the background of the company, the history of the company, the basic idea that you plan to follow up on, that would be a section at the very front of the document, behind the executive summary, that gives a full detail of what this business is all about. The products that the business make. If the focus of the company is more on the product than the company, you're going to have a product section there that says, okay, here is the thingamabob, gizzyboo, thingamajig that we're making, if you're in a manufacturing type business, that we're going to focus on. So you'd have a section there on the product description. Again, really depends on what you're selling. If you're selling a service, the product would be the services that you provide. Okay, so that definition, the word product is a very loose terminology here, but it basically says, here's the deal of what we're selling. That will be in that section. Then, as I say, this is all good. You've got a history of the business. You've got a basic idea of what you're selling. Now, okay, so you've told someone, here's the business we're in. And they're going to say, well, that's great, but can you sell it? Is there a market for it? Because really, you can have the best idea, but if no one buys it, it doesn't matter. So you need to say, okay, well, the next section in any business plan would be what's going on in the environment. Now, the environment is it's outside. It's not within your control. It's all the stuff that's out there in the world that says, there is a market for this product. Here, I can prove it. Okay, so the executive, the environmental analysis is really, this is the market that's out there for this product that I just told you I'm going to build, and I'm going to demonstrate that there's a link between the market and the product, and that one will go into the other, and we'll make a lot of money selling the greatest thing that was ever invented. So when we talk about the environment, we're talking about things like what's going on outside, the economic conditions. if you're selling something really expensive and everybody around you or the market is poor, meaning no one has any money, you're not going to sell anything, right? You need to sell stuff that people have the ability to buy. How many Rolls Royces, for example, are being sold in Newfoundland? However, if you have a connection between this product is a relatively low cost product, a solar panel, for example, it costs $20, and the market is there for solar panels, low price solar panels, that makes a connection between what you're selling and what the market is. So that part of the environment will be important. That's the economic. Do people have the money to buy the product that you're selling? The political legal environment. The political legal environment, you think about the environmental movement, okay? And when we talk about the environment, when I use the word environment here in terms of the environmental analysis, I'm not talking about birds and bees and flowers and rain. I'm talking about what's going on out there in the business environment. But in terms of looking at the environment, the birds and the bees thing, you know, if the environment is such that people are into solar panels and things now because of the increased concern over the future of the world, that very fact could demonstrate if we've got a very environmentally conscious market out there and you're selling solar panels, there's a nice connection, right? There's a nice connection. And again, you want to make that connection. And if government, for example, from a legal or political environment, if government has put incentives in place for people to buy solar panels, again, nice connection. And if it's legal to sell solar panels, good connection. The demographic situation deals with the people's ages, their jobs, their gender, these sorts of things. Again, you know, if you find that it's mainly men buying solar panels and there's lots of men out there in the market, again, good connection. Social, if it's socially acceptable, if it's the thing right now that everyone should have solar panels, that makes it good. Competitive, how many people are selling solar panels? Are we the only company that's selling solar panels? Are there any competitors out there? You know, again, if there's very few competitors, again, it makes it very easy to make that connection. What's going on in the global market? Like for now, you know, wind turbines. Whoever's making wind turbines must be looking at the world now and saying, this is a fantastic place to live these days because the global market for wind turbines is going crazy. And technology, you know, is solar panel technology changing to make them less expensive to build, easier to build, more cost competitive? Again, if you got that connection, and what you're trying to do in the environmental analysis is to make a connection between the product you're selling, all the things that it offers, and the market for that product. And if you can show that link in your business plan, it certainly makes the case that your product could be a potential runaway success. We're also going to look at this connection, as I say, between the environmental analysis will connect the consumer with the market to make sure that there is a market for the product you're selling. And then we move into this concept of that we've spent a lot of time on, strategy. And that is, okay, if you've proven that in these parts so far in your introduction that, yeah, we're selling something that the market wants, you're going to have to demonstrate now that you have the wherewithal and the way your business is set up to be able to make that connection. Okay, so the strategy is really a demonstration that you have the plan in place to get the products to the consumer and that the consumer will buy the products and be absolutely satisfied with it. So when we think about business strategy, we're talking about the right place, at the right price, at the right time, to the consumer, the right purchaser. Who are they? So or how your business is organized to achieve that sort of thing. So this right here, this basic one-page summary of the front end of the business plan is really, as I say, the candy. That is what you need to do in any business plan to get someone's attention, to get them to read. So it's really, 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 really important that you have a very good introduction that has these basic components in it. I'll look at them in a little more detail now. So from the cover page, here's an example of a business plan. Like, okay, it got a nice little graphic on it. It says that it's a business plan, so nobody's worried about what's this about, you know. It has a date on it. These dates presumably will be updated as you update your business plan, and where it is, how it's set up, who the contact information is, because someone might want to phone you up and say, hey, I read your business plan. I want to know more about it. Okay, so basically the cover page should contain basic information. What is the name of the business, the fact of the business plan, when it was prepared, contact information, so that someone could actually get a hold of you to say, I'd like to invest in your company. As I say, once they crack the cover on the business page, on the business plan, they're gonna look at this table of contents. And the table of contents, as I say, is just a list. It is a list of the format of the business plan with the course. I don't have the page numbers written in here, but the corresponding page numbers would be along here. Now, if your document's electronic, again, I suppose page numbers still count in an electronic world, but it basically gives you a layout. So it organizes the information in the business plan, and it needs to be organized in a fashion that people can easily find what they're looking for. The executive summary is probably the hardest thing that you could do in a business plan, because what you need to do is boil down the essence of the business plan. Once you've got it all written, you got to boil down the essence of it to 2 pages. That's hard. So in order to do that in a sense, you need to wait until you got the business plan completed, so you have a good idea. It normally is helpful that you did the business plan. You're the one who wrote it. You're the one who knows it intimately, and that way you can very easily summarize it. As I say, this is like a 40-second elevator pitch or a 1-minute elevator pitch that you need to write in such a way that someone could read this in 1 minute and have a good idea of what you're talking about, what you're planning to do, and hopefully stimulate them to want to find out more. So it's the first section that has the potential investor interested. That's what it tries to do. Considered the most important part of the document. And you can see the executive summary is very short. It must include highlights of each of the sections of the business plan and explain the basics of the business. Be sufficiently interesting to motivate the reader to continue reading. Can't be any more than 2 pages. As I say, you can do a better job writing an executive summary after you've written the business plan as opposed to doing it first. The company background. The company background is essential, particularly if the business already exists. If the business has been around for a while, if you want to know a little bit about the history. If you don't have a background, you don't have a history, you got to say, well, what is it that you're bringing to the table? What is the basic business idea that we have here that we can sell? Okay, so things like trends in the industry, the products that you're selling, how big they are, how potentially attractive it is to a customer. Solar panels, for example, might be very attractive right now. It really needs to paint a picture of what the potential business is going to look like. So someone should be able to read this and have an idea of what this is going to look like when it comes into reality. For an existing business, you can write this if you're planning on expanding the business, and it should provide a synopsis of the company and a noteworthy events and what's going on in the existing marketplace. Should also outline the basic goals and objectives of the business. What is it that we want to do with this business if we continue on? The who, what, where, when, and how. Basically, the 5 W's will be answered in here. And in terms of that background, there's about 16 questions I have here that really should be answered in this basic background. What's the nature of the business? What's the nature of the industry? What key features that you're bringing to this? Target markets. Where are we in terms? Is it a brand new type of business? Solar panels, for example, might be a relatively new business, or is it a mature business? So you're selling stuff that people are very familiar with. Basic demographic characteristics. How large is the market out there for this product? Where are they located? How are you going to get at those markets? Are they planning on growing? Is this a growing market, or are you selling into a shrinking market? competitors, how easy is it to get into, what you bring to the table, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. You're not going to emphasize your weaknesses, you're going to emphasize your strengths, obviously. And how the business is different, what makes yours stand out. And, these are all important things that you put in the background. If you're making a product or if you're selling a service, you got to tell people exactly what you're selling. Okay, so the description of the product and service is important. Comes after the industry analysis, and it says, okay, I'm selling this type of widget. Okay, it gets a lot of scrutinization because people want to know exactly what you're selling and is it something that they would buy? If you look at normally this section, for example, would often have photographs in it. This is the product, or some sample of a prototype, or some drawings or things like that might be in this section. So people have to have a good idea of what exactly you're selling. It gives a fuller description of the product, how you're going to sell that product. And again, the feasibility analysis helps lead you into this section. We're also going to know, unfortunately, you're going to have to do an analysis of your competitors. How big a market is out there for it? Well, your competitor analysis will tell you that. If you got 6 or 8 competitors out there, who are the top 3? Are they direct competitors? These are what are called primary competitors. Are they selling exactly the same thing? Are they just other businesses the same as yours? Or are they indirect competitors? Are they selling something similar to yours? Walmart, for example, sells paper, but so do Staples. So Staples is not really a direct competitor from Walmart because Walmart sells so many other things, but it's an indirect competitor because it sells paper as well as Staples does. Are there other levels of competitors, people that sell similar things in, for example, Amazon or online, or, can I get this built somewhere else? Can I get that sort of thing? And if it's a service business, what are the other companies that are providing a service type of business? So the basic questions that want to be asked or answered in the competitor analysis section is there anyone selling the same products as I am? Does the competitor offer similar products? What other businesses are out there that are charging? What are they charging? Are they higher, lower, same? Innovative. How innovative are you versus your competitors? You got something new, added, value added, something different that stands out. What are consumers buying? Are they buying those items from the competitors? Why would they buy from you if they're happy with the competitors? And again, this idea of how do you stand out needs to come in. So the ultimate goal at this stage is to get a broad sense of what's out there in the market that you can sell into, that you're selling into. What is the competitive landscape, we call it. Now, you have a good idea of who you're selling to. You have a good idea of your product. Now, how are you going to link the two? And this is what we get into is the business strategy. And we've talked a lot about business strategy here in this particular program, where we said, okay, this is the plan for how you plan to maneuver your product into the market to create the most successful opportunities. So it's going to outline your basic goals, how you plan to achieve those goals, some of the objectives. You're going to explain the how. How are you going to sell this? So, in terms of the basic questions that you're going to ask here, do you know what business you're in? What's the sales growth that's expected? Is there sales growth expected, particularly in a period of time like 5 years? How big is the industry in terms of sales? Okay. How many dollars are you playing with out there that you can grab someone? How big is the pie? Opportunities, threats for the industry, trends in the industry, current environmental factors that you just related to. So again, you're drawing in the things that you looked at in the competitor analysis and the product and services and making that link between the two. How do your products fit the situation out there? So your whole marketing program then, how are you going to do this, is really covered in this basic section of business/marketing strategy. Business strategy is for the business as a whole. The marketing strategy will be more focused on the product that you're selling. So you got a product. How are you going to differentiate your business or your product from everyone else's? So you can think of, there are lots of examples of what you need to know here. If you got a business market, or if you got a consumer, you've got a business market or consumer market or government market, different buyers are going to have different needs, right? So where are your customers? Are they business? Are they business to business, business to government, business to consumer? The age, gender, occupation, family size, income levels, consumer wants, how much spend, what people do in their leisure time, particularly if selling recreational products. What type of industry, location, buyers, products, where you can buy the products that you're going to sell. Numbers of employees, for example, out there with your competitors or with who you're getting it from. Specific needs and basic purchasing policies that if you're selling to a company, what do they need in order to buy from you? Finally, in this introduction stage, you say, okay, I've got an idea of now, here's my product, here's the market, here's how I'm going to connect the two. You're going to ask yourself, and you're going to say in your business plan, how are you going to set up your business in order to do that? So what are you going to do in order to make that strategy happen? When we think about businesses, you can set them up a number of ways. You can set them up as what's called a sole proprietorship. We've talked about that. Sole proprietorship is you. Basically, a sole proprietorship is just an extension of you. You're running it out of your garage. You're running it out of your basement. You are the business, okay? Now, the advantage of that is it's super simple. Anyone can start a sole proprietorship. I can do it in 5 minutes. I got a sign that says Paul's Pizza. Paul's in the pizza business. There you go. Nothing to it. It's really simple. And I don't have to deal with anyone. I don't have to have anyone bugging me in terms of, oh, you should do it this way. I get to make all the decisions. That's the great thing about being a sole proprietorship. The downside is I got $10.42 to invest. That's all I got. I don't have anyone to help me. So if I had partners or if I had investors, that would be helpful. Sole proprietorship normally is just one. Most businesses that start off will start off in this type of format, this or a partnership. And effectively, it's just a small business startup form of business. As businesses grow, they tend to emerge past the sole proprietorship. So the partnership is probably a bigger business where you say, okay, look, I'm going to get into this business with 2 or 3 other people. Now, the advantage of that is several heads are better than one. That's the first advantage. And the other advantage is several wallets are better than one, too. You got more people putting money into it. And that's always good. The downside is you got to work with your partners. And if things go bad, could be not so good for the business, that sort of thing. So you got to be able to kind of weigh out the advantages of the sole proprietorship and the advantages of a partnership and the disadvantages of sole proprietorship, disadvantages of partnership, and figure out where you're going. Normally, as a business starts to grow, you're going to take on more and more people. So a business normally starts off sole proprietorship, then moves to a partnership, or sometimes it just starts off a partnership and moves into the next level, which is really a corporation. Now, the great thing about a corporation is that it is more legally safe, okay? The problem with a partnership and a sole proprietorship is if things go bad, okay? Let's assume things go bad. Not only can you lose what you invested in the business, but you can lose personal stuff too. So if someone comes in and says, okay, Paul, you started this business, it failed. Not only is Paul going to lose his business, Paul could also lose his house and things because Paul is the business, right? And in either case of being a sole proprietorship or partnership, you are the business and there's no separation between you and your bank account and the business. So if something goes bad with the business, it's probably going to go bad with you. The corporation helps shelter you from that a little bit. When you set up a corporation, what you end up doing is creating a separate legal entity. In other words, it's like a person, another person in law. It's not a real person, it's a legal person. And you own shares in that legal person. In other words, you have ownership of it, but you're shaded or covered from some of the liability. If things go bad, it goes bad for the corporation, not necessarily you. Okay, so corporations, the separate legal entity, is how larger businesses tend to operate. And we hear the term limited, okay? Something, something limited, or so-and-so limited. And all that means is it's set up as a corporation, and the corporation has shareholders, of which the owner could be the sole shareholder, which is no different than a sole proprietorship, or the owner could be made up of several people, which is really no different than partnership. But the corporation has to be incorporated by lawyers, and it requires some money to get an organization set up. But the advantage is the corporation shelters you from some liabilities if things go bad. It also exists beyond you, meaning that when you die, if you're a sole proprietorship or a partnership, the business dies with you. Corporations live on forever, in theory. So you could die and the business will keep on going. And that's very important, especially as you get older, that the business continues. So allowing for easily shifting or continuity of the business certainly helps.